Greetings everybody and welcome to my Python tutorial series for beginner. In this tutorial series I'll be teaching you basic Python, and if you're new to coding, like this is the first time you've touched anything in this realm, don't be scared. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as possible, and if there's any question, feel free to ask in the comment section. I'll come around probably once a week or so, and if I'm available, I'll try to answer. Forgot other things. Even though this is a tutorial series for beginner, it doesn't mean that I'll be not be challenging you. To be a programmer is to be challenged. We are problem solvers after all, and to be a good problem solvers, you have to, guess what? Solve problems. That is why I'll be giving you like tasks at the end of each tutorial. It'll be basically what I've taught in that tutorial, plus I'll probably also bring something from previous tutorials so that you don't just forget them. But that wouldn't be enough. You would have to. I wouldn't teach you everything that you need to do that task, and you would probably have to figure something out on your own, or maybe do some research on your own, because in the real world, that is what we have to do, and I'm trying to prepare you for that. Lastly, the last thing one of the things I'll say to every new programmer that I've taught, which is not much, to be honest, is don't be scared of errors. Right now, the errors that that is getting spitting out of whatever you're doing is not going to affect your machine in any way. You're not going to break stuff. So don't be scared of error now when it doesn't going to break stuff. It's because it's actually better than when error actually breaks stuff and then you're scared of it. So don't be scared of error. Get used to it. Know what to do and what not to do, and then when it starts to get into the dangerous territory, you are confident with it. So you won't actually be breaking stuff then. Without further ado, let's get going. Because I've been talking something for a couple of minutes now, I don't know. So, go to Replit.com. Just this, and then this is probably just going to show up on the very first thing. On the very first thing that is that when you search Replit. Then, if you don't want to create an account, which I would recommend that you do, because when you do it, you can actually create projects and stuff like that. But I think in this tutorial series I won't be doing it, because you don't really need anything from like that. So scroll down, click on Python, and boom, there you go. Right now I don't want to be like making you installing anything, because to be honest, like it isn't anything about programming at all, and I want this to just be like programming as like basically as possible. And hey, voila, I don't even have to type anything. Hello world is already there, which is what I'm going to teach you next. So I'm actually going to get rid of this and then actually teach you what is going on here. So actually, it's maybe a good idea to actually show you what it does first. So here, okay, let me say this. Let me say this first. This thing right here is called the console. So keep that in mind. So when we run the file, so when we run the code, hello world magically shows up. And if I put in some random text here, that shows up. So what does this do? Basically, print, which is here, is a built-in function in Python. Well, basically, and let me explain what function is first. Function is basically a piece of code that you can just call. So this right here, the print right here, is a piece of code that is used for printing out stuff. Actually, a easier word to understand would be outputting stuff to the console, and that's it. And then, in the brackets here, is called the parameters. Now, the parameter, you can imagine like it's the input that the function is what is it called? That the function is taking. So what I'm inputting here is this random text. Right here. And then what the print function does is it prints it out, or outputting it over here. Pretty simple, right? Now, if you about the quotation marks. What is it? What is it called again? Whatever. Let's just call this quotation mark. Is it apostrophe? Yeah, not sure. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to put this here so that it won't be confusing. Okay, I'm gonna run this again. Okay, so about the quotation marks, if you're asking why isn't it getting shown up, I will tell you about that in data types, but just keep in mind that if you just run it like this, it'll just spit out an error. For now, of course. So you have to put a quotation mark around that. But for number, you can do either. You can just put it in or not put it in. But also keep this in mind, what I just printed out earlier and this isn't the same thing. But that is also for later. I'll tell you all about those things in variables and data types and all those stuff. And it'll probably come in like 2-3 videos. Probably the next video. Okay, let's continue. So, the input function. Same thing as before. This input right here is a code that is built in to Python, which is basically, so this is basically a piece of code that is designed to take in input from the keyboard via the console. And then this is the parameter it takes, which will output to the user, to prompt the user to input to the console via the keyboard, and then taking that data to do whatever it wants. But explaining it with words might be a little bit hard, so let me just show you. So I'm going to just I'm going to just input like this, and then colon and stuff like that. Yeah, that seems fine. Boom. So there you go, input. I forgot I have to do this first. Boom, there you go. So basically what it is doing here is it is outputting this over here, and then it is prompting the user to enter whatever is enter here, and then it'll just take that data to do whatever. But you might ask, well, great, but how do I use that data? Well, simple. Print, and then we put the input function into the print function. So what it'll be doing here is taking this and then printing it out one line below. So when we're inputting this thing into here, it'll just become this whole block, and then this whole block is used as a parameter into the input as, okay, let's say input into this input function, which takes the input from the keyboard from the user on the console as used as an input for the print function to print out on the console. That is basically how it can be explained by words. So, as that was pretty much it for print and input, now it's time for the task. So, what I want you to be doing is this. Actually, I might want to make it a little bit nicer. Wait a second. Okay. So, I want it to prompt the user to enter how old they are. So let's say I enter 21. And let's say you're 21. That's it. 5 minutes. Googling is allowed. Good luck. Okay, 5 minutes have passed. Although it might not be for some of you, because I would believe that most of you who actually does it right away, will just pretty much come back right away. And some of you who doesn't do it right away will probably be figuring it out for a bit longer than 5 minutes. But whatever. If you solve it, it's good. So, the solution? A basic comma. That is the only thing that I've not taught you in this tutorial. Is that you can put multiple sources and then print it out in the same line using comma. So now I can put UR in quotation marks and then comma, and then put the second source, which is the input prompting how old are you, which I then enter 21. Then it would then take it and then merge it with UR and then print out, and then take that as an input to the print function, and then print out UR 21. Awesome. For those of you who figured it out, like, oh, of course it would be comma, what else would it be? Good. Keep going in senses, keep doing these things, you'll be a great programmer one day. And for those of you who Google it up, even better for you. You've learned a very, very valuable lessons for programmers. Is that we solve problems. We're not encyclopedias. We don't remember everything except the things that we use very often, which, if we Google it up often enough, you know what would happen? We would just remember it in the end. And for those things that we don't need as often, well, remembering it is just wasted brain space, so why the hell do you want to remember it? Just Google it up when you need it. And, well, jokes aside, this is a really, really valuable lessons for every programmer. Because Googling up how to print multiple things and stuff like that, well, it's pretty easy if you compare it to like when you're doing stuff that is like a little bit more rare, and then there's not that much resources, and then you have to like, and then it's very hard to look up, like you mess up like one search keywords, and then the solution that you want will be replaced by completely different solutions and whatever. So if you solve the problems by your own sense, good, keep developing these sense. And then if you solve the problems by Googling it up, also good, because you also need these things in the future. In fact, to be a good programmer, you would need both of these things, really. But for beginners, one of them is just fine. You'll develop the other over the years anyway. And for those of you who doesn't solve it, which I believe there is going to be very little, I would recommend you to be a bit more brave and don't be scared of just trying random stuff. Let's say if your internet is slow as hell and you can't search anything, well, just put whatever into this print thing. You're not gonna be hurt by it. If you put in like an extra comma and stuff like that, and then an error comes out, you're not going to get zapped by your computer and whatnot. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to happen. And so just try random things until it's work, because sometimes, you know what, that does work. So, and actually, for those of you who did that, good job as well. But for those of you who didn't do that and didn't solve it, well, do that, and then you'll start developing the senses, and then if you can search it, Google search it. You just have to keep doing these things over and over and over again to be a good programmer. And really, print and input, there's barely anything to teach, because it's just one line, it's just one word, parentheses, put what you want it to print out in the put what you want it to output in the parentheses, and that's pretty much it. So what I want you to take from this tutorial is not really too much the programming part, but more of mindset part of what it takes to be a programmer. It took a lot more to be a programmer. It's not just whatever I just said, of course. But that is pretty much what I said to new programmers. And I hope, and if you decided that I suck, I won't come back. Hopefully you take those things with you. And for those of you who are looking for the next tutorial, well, let us meet again next time. Also, I'll be teaching about data, and I'll be teaching about variables and data, and I'll be teaching about variables and data types in that tutorial. So, look forward to it. Goodbye.